I'm Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist with degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy, and a national certification in integrative mental health. In this video, I'm not looking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. Maggie Thompson is presenting the work titled The Book of Knowledge, The Keys of Enoch, written by J.J. Hurtak. Maggie Thompson is not validating nor supporting Hurtak's views, epiphanies, visions, beliefs, or words. Maggie Thompson is simply presenting the work as written and is attempting to translate this extraordinarily esoteric work to a common vernacular and understanding. Further, Maggie Thompson understands this work to be solely concerning the Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and while Hurtak views his work to be the key or keys to uniting all the world's people under one religion, namely Abrahamic, Maggie Thompson does not support this premise whole cloth. However, this work does give depth and insight into the connection of physics, cosmology, biology, and spirituality, which, for the seeker of divine truth, can be invaluable for the discovery of one's place in the universe, and that may be under the hierarchy of Yahweh, the Ancient of Days, or a hierarchy that exists above or beside such deities, or none altogether. Maggie Thompson implores all seekers of knowledge to, letter A, not accept what a person of authority tells you without validation. This includes looking at critiques and the opposing views with an open mind. Letter B, accept that religion, as well as science and politics, is presented as a means of indoctrination and is always presented with the biases of the overall field or system, the authors of texts, and the presenter, whose goals are to convince you of the, quote, truth, end quote, of their premise or premises. Letter C. It is possible to take insight, truths, and information from a biased work. Any body of work for the purpose of deeper meaning and knowledge must be carefully excavated and carved to glean wisdom. And letter D. No work or bodies of work that is believed by a large group or populace of people should be dismissed out of hand simply because you do not believe it. We live in a diverse time where religious belief takes center stage in the governing of the collected masses. To truly understand the barriers and gateways to your personal success and fulfillment, you must accept that believers of any kind can and will do what is necessary to meet their goals.
Hi. So we're going to talk about living energy codes tonight, but there's going to be a lot of tinfoil hat tonight. There's just going to be a lot. But before I get into it, let me say hello to some people. Adric is here first, hashtag Pivot Point Wednesday. Auntie is here. Hi, Auntie. She says, I promise to behave tonight. Please, where's the fun in that? Why you got to behave? That's not fun. Adrian says, let's go. And salute to you as well, JB Designs, and people who are watching from the clouds. Hello to you as well. Please feel free to say hello. This is the best live tribe on YouTube. And shout out to the replay gang. So we're going to talk about the living energy codes, key 2-0-4, pages 204 to 210. So let me read the key, and then we're going to talk about it. Yeah, energy code. Okay, so The keys to the sons of light are given in the transmissions of living energy codes within the people of God. They are sent from living universe to reveal the codes of light to the orders of evolving species within cellular time, so that the code of nucleic membranes may attach within the larger membrane of the universes. You guys got that? That's not confusing. Come on now. All right. So tonight we're going to use, my glasses are crooked. Who did that? Okay. We're going to use multiple concepts, including Disney's TVA, because it works, from the Loki series, to make J.J. Hurtak's excessively esoteric work into something not esoteric. I'll be critiquing his premise, as well as maybe offering some guidance. So this key also focuses on divine justice. Neato, huh? Okay, so the full reading of this is on my channel. So if you haven't watched it and you want to watch it, you certainly can. Sometimes I think it might be better to listen to it after with the live breakdown, because you're going to have a different perspective. So let's go through and read just some highlights and talk about it. But the first thing I want to show you is the picture. You guys notice anything? I think they hate DEI too. Although Ganesh is there, the elephant guy. But yeah. So I thought that might be interesting. All right. So let's talk about some highlights. All right. Let me get my book up here where I can read it. The sons of light project the geometries of creation into fourth dimensional space in order to code spiritual mankind into the fifth dimension, the next larger membrane of universes. The revealing of the codes of light extend through telethought communication, which is produced by the modulation of gravitational waves. The gravitational waves carry the codings of light intelligent from the larger membrane of the universes. That's his explanation. Why don't you get it? Okay, so more highlights. This knowledge comes both as a light force and as a love force. This is expressed through God's infinite mind as Eya, Asher, Eya, I am that I am, which gives teaching and understanding to our creation through the hierarchy for the remaking of our evolving species within cellular time. So we previously, got my notes here, by the way, we previously talked about the issue with Hurtak's translation of Eya, Asher, Eya, because that also means the God who is Enki. Enki is the Enki. That's because Eya, prior to Hebrew, in Sumer, Mesopotamia, Eya was Enki. So that's interesting. So we previously talked about that and how that's a problem. Okay. The movement towards energy embodiment of the fifth dimension begins with a mutual programming. And you guys know how I feel about every time he says we got to be programmed and reprogrammed. That is, I always have an issue with that. But here we are with his programming again, right? And maybe I'm just really sensitive due to indoctrination, right? I just don't feel like being programmed again. I'm still working on getting rid of programming. I don't want any more. So what I want to do is let's look at Hurtak's definition of programming. Because again, somebody was nice enough to tell me that there's glossary in the back. And then that'll tell us, what he means by some of the stuff that he says. So programming, what does he say? Programming The art of reducing the plan for the solution of a problem. Aiding the advancement of a project by sensible instructions that can be achieved by a given level of intelligence. I never really thought of programming like that. I mean, I'm thinking of computer programming. It's not really like what problem and whose problem is being solved. Like programming is the answer to the problem, is what he's saying. If the problem is nonconformity or independent thought or even dissent or cultural differences, then this programming solution is about eliminating resistance to hegemony, right? So as an example, okay, the problem is people think critically and question authority. So the solution is program them with pre-approved narratives, education, and values. Like we already see that happening in the country, okay? The problem is only a problem for those in power. It's not a problem for the people who are critically thinking. I mean, doesn't that make sense? So then it talks about reducing the plan and certain intelligences. So reducing the plan and sensible instructions sounds like dumbing down, doesn't it? Reducing the plan and giving sensible instructions. It sounds like dumbing it down into this like pre-digested belief. Like we're all supposed to be baby birds with our beaks open while Hertalk and the Brotherhoods of Light, vomit pre-digested ideas down our gullet. That's kind of what it sounds like. You don't have to think. We'll tell you what to think and what to do and who to be and, because it's all part of the plan. Makes sense? That's just kind of what it sounds like to me. Am I being too sensitive? You guys would tell me if I'm being too sensitive, wouldn't you? Okay. So let's keep up with the highlights. The words larger membrane of universes are set off by special markings which represent a key within a key. The larger membrane shows us that we function as the finger cells and the toe cells of the higher mind, processing knowledge as the brotherhoods pulsate their wisdom into us. Maybe it's not baby birds. That didn't, okay. That didn't sound great. Okay, so the brotherhoods are going to be pulsating stuff into you. All right, so here are the words of the Master Control Evolutionary Charter given in the name of the Office of the Christ. So here's the contract, okay? Here's the covenant. Adrian says, vomit? I'll be a vegetarian. Well, the Brotherhood said they will pulsate it into you. So not vomit. They want to pulsate into you. Does that sound better? Pulsate. No ditties, right? We're not going to ditty this. So this is the covenant that they want you to be a part of. Okay. Why does he always say Christ and not Jesus? Have you guys noticed that? The office of the Christ body, the Christ this, Christ that. Because he's obviously Abrahamic, but he's not talking about Jesus. If you watched my last show, it might make sense why he's not talking about Jesus. I mean, but maybe, I don't know. So let's go through the Master Control Charter. Let's go through it because there's a lot of points. Okay. JB Design says, sounds like the Brotherhood really likes its brothers. Well, yeah, because it did say, to be in the Brotherhood of Light, you do have to be male. So I don't know what's happening to the chicks. Although there are Nikki women in the pictures. So maybe the women are just around to be Nikki. I don't know. You got to be a man to be a part of the plan here. Okay. So this is point 1. We live in an open-ended local universe, which is part of myriad universes, which comprises the universal mind. Okay, well, we've talked about, the theory that because universes kind of look like neurons and there's been theories for hundreds if not 1,000 years that we actually live in the mind of God. So it's not too weird to bring that up. I don't really. Oh, concubines. Yeah. See, there's a place for us, ladies. We can be the concubines to be pulsated. That's not bad. Okay. The next one. Our local universe has at its center a more developed pattern of astrochemical networks and reprogramming life syntheses known as the higher evolution. So, you know what scientists now say is at the center of our universe? A black hole. Interesting, huh? That's why we're swirling. It's almost like the toilet bowl, right? That's why we're swirling. We're just swirling around the black hole. Um, I'm not sure how, going into the black hole is higher evolution, but hey, science could also be wrong. All right, next one. When you surrender your personal ego and identity to God, you are able to rise to a space-time overlap. You're surrendering your personal identity to God. Here's the thing. You're surrendering your personal identity to God so you're able to rise to a space-time overlap and do all these things and yada yada. If you've surrendered yourself to God, you're not there anymore. Do you follow me? Like you're not there to enjoy or to have fun or to feel satisfied with whatever is happening because you're not there. You're now an automaton, which never sounds fun to me, right? The programming is sounding creepy, honestly, to me. To me, sounds creepy. Some people might like it. I don't know. As Adrian would say, I don't know what you do. So next one. Invitation to the higher I am identity consciousness of the evolutionary continuum comes by dedicating your physical garment of life for the survival of the species. There's the pulsating. You give up your physical garment, meaning your body, right? See, dedicating your physical garment of life for the survival of the species. You're going to breed. There's going to be pulsating and you're going to breed. So he's and also that if you give up your body for the survival of the species, if it's not breeding, then it's dying, right? It's dying for the species. How else are you going to give up your physical body? Okay. So there's pulsating and dying. Okay. Adrian says I was going to say drone. Leon? Yes. Energy codes and the Brotherhood of Light. Okay. Focused attention between the people of God of our galaxy's I am consciousness with the I am consciousness within the larger membrane of universes is necessary for our attunement and resonance with the universal intelligence of Aya Asher Aya, I am that I am. Okay, so that just sounds like all the Kangs in the multiverse lineup. That's what it sounds like, right? Focused attention between the people of God of our galaxy with the other consciousness outside of the membrane, makes one big universal intelligence. All right, all the Kangs line up. Got it. Okay, number 30. Individual attunement is both biological synchrony and resonance with self-realization, allowing man as a living biotransducer. What? Well, we've already given up our body for pulsing and dying, right? And we're getting all the Kangs lined up. So now we're going to become a biotransducer. So What's a biotransducer, right? On the surface, it's just transforming a biological response into a measurable signal. That's essentially the definition of what that is. But what he's talking about is transhumanism. This new person that you become through the programming, giving up your body, becoming a biotransducer. You're literally a megaphone for whatever this energy is, right? The new person is easily controlled, is easily hacked. If you personally become a biotransducer, this is like super serum to create the super soldier. This is super soldier program. But remember what happened with Bucky. So I'm not sure how I feel about this, but America already does this super soldier program, right? DARPA, DARPA. Yeah, Adrian, transducer speaker. It's a megaphone, right? So, but in the medical field, something that's a biotransducer is transforming a biological response into a measurable signal. So that's a biotransducer. But what you're saying, it's a speaker, it's an automaton, right? It's a clone, it's a drone, it's you know, uh the Borg. This is what this sounds like to me, the Borg. Okay. But DARPA, the United States already does this. They do genetic enhancement, brain computer interfaces, exoskeletons, synthetic blood. They're already doing transhumanism and they're already creating the super soldiers, right? But what this sounds like is the Borg, right? I've shared with you guys before about the mind control stuff that they did with MK Ultra, the Gateway Project. These are all declassified CIA files. You can go look at them yourself, but I've done shows on them before, probably on a Wednesday. Part of that, though, is remote influence, okay, which sounds like this biotransducer, okay? What he's talking about is remote influence. It's a megaphone. It's turning somebody into a puppet, your eyes and ears and speaker. Okay. So let's talk about when the CIA did remote influence. Okay. Our minds and our bodies are electromagnetic. That is proven by science. Okay. Frequencies, when we are exposed to certain frequencies, vibrations, sounds, those kind of things, it can modulate our mood, our perceptions. So, what we think we see, hear, taste, smell, touch, feel, all of that. It can modulate our sleep and even modulate pain on whether we feel pain or not. Now, sound waves and infrasound, which I've talked about before. Remember when I talked about when in the United States they played that warning system and how there was an infrasound embedded inside of that? Sound waves with infrasound can cause anxiety, confusion, and fear, which is what we talked about when I talked about that before. Now, this is all scientific facts. Light waves, so that's sound, right? Light waves in a flicker can entrain the brain through alpha and beta waves. Play the flicker, it's even better than hypnosis. You can entrain the brain to do pretty much anything. And then scalar waves can travel faster than light and directly influence our consciousness. That's that non-locality that I've talked to you guys before about in quantum physics, right? Where two things that were previously connected will remain connected no matter how far apart they are. Okay. That is due to the influence of scalar waves, which are instantaneous. Okay. So, unfortunately, the human brain is like an antenna already. Okay. It is already like kind of like a tuning fork. It will match, again, proven through science. The brain will match the vibration of whatever is vibrating closest to it, like a tuning fork. If I have two tuning forks and I hit one and I hold them like this, the other tuning fork will start vibrating at the same tone as the first one. Our brains do that too, okay? The US military, so all of that was learned through the remote influence program, okay? The US military uses all of this to this day. I hit the microphone again, I'm sorry. They have something called V2K, which is voice to skull. I don't know why it's V2K, but it's voice to skull, okay? It is transmitting words and suggestions into a person's mind because the skull will hold a vibration, it'll hold a resonance. So if you send the resonance, it will be picked up in your mind, in your brain, as a message. That is voice to skull. The US military uses it now. Then they also have something called silent sound spread spectrum. 4S for short, thank God, because saying silent sound spread spectrum over and over again is terrible. So that's 4S, okay? Now what 4S is it is sub-audible command and mood manipulation. So these are sounds that you can't hear, okay? Sounds that you can't hear. All right, so then they also use something called TAM, T-A-M, which is all caps, and they also call it grill flame, G-R-I-L-L, and then F-L-A-M-E, grill flame. This is telepathic behavior modification tools. Again, the US military uses it now. So let's talk about it. Have you guys ever heard of Operation Crimson Mist from 1994? The US government used 4S to incite violence in Rwanda. Over 800,000 Tutsis and Hutus were massacred in 10 days out of this incitement of violence using the 4S. Right? We already know that the media uses subliminal messaging, predictive programming to seed ideas into our head and to shape manufactured consent. Noam Chomsky. Shout out to Noam Chomsky. The media also uses emotionally coded frequencies in music, in alarms, in newscasts. And then they also use something called mimetic warfare to turn ideas into like an earwig that spreads and reprograms our behavior because our brain keeps turning it over and over and over again. That's what an earwig is. So right now, at this moment, there are 4 specific 4S patents, and the 4S and the V2K programs are declassified. So you can go and read about them and how they use them, and you can read about Rwanda. If they've declassified these programs, what kind of programs are they working on now that are still classified? That should be concerning. So I have heard of a program that uses humans as like Wi-Fi antennas, to boost Wi-Fi signals. Because again, we are electromagnetic, so it can be done. So we got to keep those kind of things in mind when it's talking about these things, is that our American government already does that. And if the American government already does it, then I'm sure a lot of governments in the West do it too. So let's keep going. 31. When you have tapped into the light gathering continuum, you will realize that you have more than just one body. In a fully activated state of conscious awareness, you can have 5 bodies. These are the electromagnetic, epikinetic, Ika body, which is made up of multiple bodies of relativity, the Gematrian body of inner light, and the Zohar body of outer light. Okay, I got nothing for that yet. I've never heard of having 5 bodies, but okay. All right. So we'll keep going. If a global network of spiritual humanity unites to draw upon these energies and focus them with a unified purpose towards the marriage of a consciousness evolution to a scientific evolution, the world will be one planetary mind. New World Order. Okay, got it. That's what we're going for. New World Order. Makes sense. World, planet, right? Okay, got it. All right. Our planetary mind will be speeded up as an electromagnetic computer as we move into an electromagnetic null zone. Again, I told you humans are electromagnetic. So this is using the humans as this parts and pieces for a planetary hive mind. The Borg. The Borg. Hopefully you guys know what I mean when I say the Borg. Star Trek. The nerdiness is out today. All right, so last one. During the present space-time overlap, there will be the passing of one energy universe within another as our planetary mind crosses the present electromagnetic density threshold and is raised to the next electromagnetic orbit of the universal mind. Okay. Maybe this is where Mandela effects come from. Like somehow we overlapped with another universe. I've talked about Mandela effects. Hopefully you guys know what I'm talking about when I say Mandela effects, but maybe that's where it started. We overlapped with another universe. And so we have some people with a memory of certain things and other people with a memory of other things. Leon says, I won't give up my body either. My soul will leave or my body will give up on me. Exactly. Like, what is this? Give up your body, give up your soul, give up your personal identity, be pulsed into, it's always survival of the species. And again, if you guys watch my Neanderthal stuff, that's what it sounds like. Totally. So look, okay. Key 2-0-4 is a cosmic deception disguised as divine justice. It sounds like the Borg. The council's justice is just like Kang's script, right? Key 2-0-4 describes a higher court that judges souls and condemns them, right? But we learned from Loki that one, the TVA's trials are pre-scripted and no defense was allowed. They just presented the evidence as they wanted to present it, and then you're judged and you're trimmed off. And number 2, Miss Minutes, the fake friendly angel, would smile while damning you. We learned those things. We're not going to be fooled again. Hey, Marcus, thank you for being up in here. All right, so this is all moral illusion, right? Saying pruning is for the greater good is the same as eugenics, as culling the population, as forced sterilization, right? That's what pruning is. It's the same thing. I see what you're saying, Vincent Muller. He was arrested, was killed, but he came back to life. Well, INRI means the King of the Jews, supposedly. But who knows? Hi, Cynical. Thanks for being here. You guys came in right as we're getting close to the end. But thank you for coming in. I totally appreciate it. Okay. So we learned those things from the TVA. So this moral illusion that pruning is for the greater good or suffering is God's plan. God wants you to suffer. God doesn't want me to suffer because I'm blessed. God blessed me with a fancy car and a beautiful wife and who has a big ring on her finger and a big giant house and $1 million or more in the bank. That's how God blessed me. But how God blesses you is that you suffer. You pain and you toil and you work the earth because God loves you. And he loves us both the same. right? It's moral illusion, right? It's using karma to blame victims. It's like saying, well, maybe you're suffering because you were a terrible POS in your previous life. Maybe you were an a-hole and now you got to suffer. And who am I to get in front of God's plan? Right? It's using karma to victim blame. Vincent says the first resurrection and the second death. Yeah, maybe. But I feel like that's moral illusion too, because Jesus never said he was going to die to save people. You may want to go back to Jesus was not a Jew. Watch that video and then leave your comments after and let me know what you think. Vincent, I'll be interested to see. The other moral illusion is like Job, okay? Job's God, he doled out arbitrary cruelty and called it wisdom. Sounds like an a-hole to me. I mean, is cosmic justice a test where we're all set up to fail? Because that's what it sounds like. Whether you're talking about Disney's TVA, or you're talking about Hertog's Keys of Enoch, or you're talking about the Abrahamic religions, it really sounds like cosmic justice is a test we're set up to fail. There is no defense as far as they're concerned. Marcus says God is so malleable. And what I say is that God did not create man in his image. Man created God in his image. That's why it's malleable. And that's why the rules can change. You know, that's why we see a Jesus who constantly preached against the Jews and was killed by the Romans. And then the people who tell you who Jesus is are the Jews and the Romans. Creatable. Hi, Sim. Sim says, you suffer because you ended up here of your own doing. You think it's a coincidence you are in a body that dies? Genesis, Adam and Eve were created immortal, and then they turned against God and cursed. Genesis also says that man and woman were created at the same time. There's two different creation stories in Genesis. One, Eve is created from Adam's rib. And then she talks to the serpent, which the serpent, throughout all of known history, meant wisdom. And it also meant woman. It meant the divine mother. And the divine mother's like, hey, this dude's out here watching you be naked and is keeping knowledge from you. Eat the thing, you'll be good. So they ate the thing. But there's another story where God made man and woman equal. Did he make them at the same time? There was no rib, right? So which story? And if we're going to talk about ancient texts, why just Genesis? We can look at where the story of Genesis came from. The Atrahaxis from Mesopotamia. So, and I'm not saying they did it on purpose or stole that information, but as things are rewritten, and then we have different councils the Romans are doing where they're rewriting scripts and deciding what goes into the Bible to define what Christianity is. And they beat out Kemet to be able to do so because they had the military power. There's more military there. Which one are we talking about? Kilburn Bible says that woman was created as a gift to man to help him to remain connected to the divine, because he had to be so focused on the earth and the physical and the living. And her job was to keep him connected, to be his muse, to be his spiritual guide, right? So which, we'll see. Sim says, Adam and Eve, in a sense, represent all of us. Nah, because I wasn't born terrible, disgusting, gross, sinner, nasty with original sin and all that. No, I think humans are born good. I think children are pretty holy. and I think the world indoctrinates them. So I disagree, but we can disagree. It's okay because we are all autonomous and we get to believe whatever we want to believe, right? Marcus says, exactly. I say this all the time, verbatim. Hey, nice. Sim says, Adam and Eve turned against God. Okay. Which God? Because they listened to the Holy Spirit. We were later told that that entity that they listened to was Lucifer. In the original writings, they listened to the Great Mother. So which one? Vincent says, I know Eli, Michael, and Satan personally. They know me as Vincent, father of the Christ, the living God. I mean, we can talk about it for a second, and then I'm going to move on. But Satan actually means deceiver. It is not a name. It is not a proper name. It is a title. It's like saying doctor or attorney or esquire or Mr. or Mrs. or the Satan is the deceiver. So anybody can act like a Satan. There isn't really a Satan. So when it says Satan was in the desert tempting Jesus, it was some deceiver. And Lucifer and some vague Satan are not the same. They're not the same entity, nor is the devil, nor is demons. Marcus says, man created God in his image. Sim says, that's nonsense. You twist the Bible. I don't know which part was nonsense, but at some point we may have to quote it. You just said Satan is a good guy. Never. Yeah, and you ask yourself why you were here on earth and suffer. I don't suffer. Never said Satan was a good guy. I said the snake, the serpent was the Holy Spirit. And that's from taking multiple ancient texts and overlaying that story. Okay. If you ask Eli, am I going to say who's like God? They'll all say Vincent. Hello. Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Well, Lucifer is the Mount of Transfiguration. Lucifer in the Bible itself says he's the morning star. They also say the same thing about Jesus. Again, I'm not saying be devil worshipers or any of that kind of stuff. I'm saying if you look in the Bible will tell you. If you listen to the preacher about what's in the Bible, then the preacher will tell you. And then you have to decide, are you believing the ancient texts, or are you just doing what the preacher tells you to do and believing what the preacher tells you to preach? It's in the Bible. It's not my fault that both Jesus and Lucifer are referred to as the morning star. That's not my fault. I didn't do it. Vincent is the light. Damn it. God is eternal life. Satan is external or eternal death. Adam and Eve were immortal. They turned against God and became mortals. The serpent is a seraphim and fiery flying serpent. Right. Okay. And for 100,000 years, in every ancient culture, the snake meant divine wisdom. The snake was the primordial ooze. The snake was the great mother and was the wisdom of the great mother. So the Abrahamic religions say, we don't like snaky snakes. They're bad. We're now going to call them bad, bad things. So if you choose to be in an Abrahamic religion and you hate the mother, that's okay. Or if you don't even want to believe there ever was a mother in the Trinity, it's two dads and a son then. That's okay. You can believe that. You're not hurting anybody by believing that. And it's okay for us to disagree. Sim says, you are twisting it like crazy. Okay. That's fine. You can believe that. The serpent is not the Holy Spirit. It's complete nonsense. Well, you have the right to believe that. Let's get back to the discussion. Marcus says, and the great pumpkin came out from the pumpkin patch. Again, we're all allowed to believe what we want to believe. My thing is, if you listen to the caution in the beginning, is that it is possible to glean wisdom from something you even don't agree with. And it's okay to be respectful to people that you don't agree with. And it's absolutely okay for me to tell you what I get out of my studies, just like it's okay for you to tell me what you get out of your studies. It's not personal. And I'm not going to tell you that you're twisting it. Oh, and Vincent's talking about the Tetragrammaton. Yeah, that's in the Keys of Enoch. And Adam is Adam's. Could be. Could be. I tend to think of Adam as the first king of the king's list of Mesopotamia. Maybe someday we'll talk about all of the ancient things that connect major civilizations to Central African peoples, how there are wars started and all of these items stolen. So as for instance, when the United States went in to find weapons of mass destruction, they stole all the artifacts from Mesopotamia, confiscated all the artifacts from Mesopotamia, and somehow the King's List came up missing during that time. I don't know if they thought a nuclear bomb was in the pottery, but that happens. But that's what I tend to think of as more the King's List, the Adam Kadmon, the first man type thing, you know. Okay, so that's moral illusion. So we were talking about Job. Job's God doled out arbitrary cruelty, called it wisdom, right? Because he wanted his undying and unwavering praise and faith, right? Creepy. It's a test. I don't think any of us would be in a relationship with the opposite sex or with some sort of partner or whatever, even a business partner who did to us what Yahweh of the Old Testament did to everybody. I mean, is it cosmic justice? I don't know. Because it still feels like a test that we're set up to fail. For me, I'd rather burn down the courthouse. That's just me. That's just me. All right. So coming up this Sunday for Father's Day, we're going to have a show on Wizards of the Old World. Now, this is me responding to another creator. You may or may not know him. His name is Lucius Aurelian, and his channel is called Restitutor Orbis. And he looks at a lot of ancient, old world kind of stuff, looks at some of the theories that are around that, about mud floods or ancient civilizations, or all the people who were here on the continent of North America prior to the Spanish coming, a lot of those type of things, and looks for evidence. Well, he did a show on Wizards of the Ancient World, and what he presented was the myths that we are given, not the actual evidence of the wizards, let alone the magi. So this Sunday, I thought it might be fun. It's Father's Day. We can do a show about the wizards of the old world. And if that's popular, if you guys like it, then I'll do one on the magi. I've already done one on who were the three wise men, but in my studies, I've gotten so much more evidence and so many more receipts. And so that would just be fun to go. It just seems fun to me. So that's coming up this Sunday for Father's Day. Aloha also, Vincent. And then next Wednesday, we'll do another keys. Then we'll get back into more of the bloodlines series and really drilling down into each of those 5 bloodlines. Okay. Shalom to you as well, Vincent. All right. I hope you all have a good rest of the night. If I don't see you Sunday, hope to see you next Wednesday. And I'm going to show you a picture of my dog.
Please like the video if you haven't already. It really helps the algorithm to know what kind of things you like. Share where you think it's appropriate, especially to someone who you think needs to hear it. And don't forget to check out some of the wilder Pivot Point Wednesday shows. And last, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you want to break down complex concepts that make the esoteric not so teric, helping you on your journey to become your most authentic self. By subscribing, you'll join a community that thrives on curiosity and growth, and you'll never miss out on insights and some wild discussions. Let's uncover the universe together. Bye.